Greetings, good morning. I hope y'all doing well this morning. Listen, we talk a lot about mindset, about changing your mindset, about developing your mindset. And I specifically talk a lot about the wealth mindset. But what does that mean? Your mindset is your foundation for the way that you perceive things. It's the vantage point through which you look at life and you make decisions about things around you. And so changing your mindset is essentially changing the way that you think about things, changing the vantage point from which you look at things. From a wealth perspective, if you're not getting the results that you want, if you're not manifesting wealth in your life, then maybe you need to change the way that you look at things, the way that you view things. And so that's why developing a wealth mindset is so important, because especially if you didn't grow up around money or wealth, or you don't really understand those financial principles, and now you're getting to a point where you're trying to learn about that, changing your mindset is so important, because it's going to change the way that you view things about your life, the way that you view things about wealth and money and things of that nature. But there are three essential things that you have to develop a wealth mindset. Three absolutely important things that you have to develop a wealth mindset. Now, before I get into that, if you don't know who I am, my name is JD Garnier. If you're in the New Orleans area, you can check out my radio show, Walking in Wealth, on Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 a.m. on KKNO K75 AM radio and 107.1 FM radio. Otherwise, you can subscribe to my Melanomics Walking in Wealth YouTube channel. Listen, if you like what I'm saying, if you like my stuff, just share my videos, like my page, subscribe. I appreciate all of that. But there's three essential things that you have to be willing to do to develop a wealth mindset. The first thing that you have to be willing to do, you got to be willing to give up something. Sacrifice. You have to be willing to give something up. If you live in your life and you feel like you're not getting the results that you want, you're not manifesting the change that you want, you got to be willing to give something up. There's no way that you can continue with the same habits, with the same energy, with the same motivation, with the same people around you, with the same environment, and get a different result. You're going to have to give something up. You have to be willing to sacrifice something. It may be your time. You may have to sacrifice time to manifest the results you want. It may be people in your life. It may be habits that you have to change, but you got to be willing to sacrifice. You cannot keep doing the same things and achieve a different result. You have to decide how bad you want it and what you are willing to give up, but there is nothing free. You have to be willing to give something up. Sacrifice, that's number one. Number two is you have to be willing to risk something. You have to be willing to take a risk. Nothing productive happens in a zone of comfort. You're going to have to come out of that comfort zone and be willing to risk. If you don't have skin in the game, if you don't have a vested interest, whether it's your time, whether it's your money, there is no return. There is no reward. There's only reward comes with risk. You have to be willing to risk something. What are you willing to give up? What are you willing to risk? What risks are you willing to take to get what you want? You can't just stay in that same place and expect for things to happen. You have to get out and you have to take a risk. You have to invest in yourself, in your resources, with your money. You have to be willing to take a risk. So you got to be willing to give something up. You got to be willing to risk something. And lastly, you got to be willing to wait for something. You got to have patience. So many times we think if we start something, if we try something, it's supposed to work immediately. It's supposed to work right out the gate. But that's not how success happens. That's not how wealth happens. Wealth is a long-term mindset. You have to be willing to wait for something. There is no scenario where you're going to flip your investment every 6 months. There is no scenario where your business is going to be successful in the first year. You have to be willing to wait for something. Once you commit to what you want, you have to be willing to wait to see it through, for it to manifest itself. You have to have patience. I meet people all the time, they're doing one thing and then 6 months later they're doing something else. They have no patience. They're not waiting for the investment to manifest itself, but you have to be willing to wait for something, to see it through. Those are the essential things that you have to have in a wealth mindset. You have to be willing to give something up. You have to be willing to risk something. And you have to be willing to wait for something. Sacrifice, risk, and patience. If you can develop that, that's the core, fundamental, foundational things that you can have to change the way that you think about your life and about wealth. And if you can do that, you're on your way. Y'all have a good morning.